So let us do what the Romans used to do back in the old days in Rome. They would say, let us whisper amongst each other so that nobody can hear us. We're going to be on the news tomorrow, or the next day. We're going to film it tomorrow. ABC 15, probably David Biscabine. We've leaked the information that ADCRR, they want to leak out at first, and that was that there was a murder of 3 inmates in Cimarron in Tucson, and they only didn't tell the media. They just didn't release it. They only released it when ACCRR got a hold. I got a hold of Channel 3-5 in Tucson and gave them a preliminary, and then they ran with it and said, okay, we've got information. And then they bombarded the director's office, and then he went ahead and told them that there was a murder and it was an altercation. Can't give them any more. So this is deadly critical information. You guys need to pay attention to here. That's why I wanted to do this video before I go on the news tomorrow. And I'm not going to tell you what's going to be on that news because I don't want to release it early and give these fuck brains, time to organize some kind of get out of jail. Then I'm going to get out of this one. So as you guys already know, Ricky Wassenaar, I think 065515, something like that. He was one of my convicts from back in the day before all that shit went down in the standoff at Lewis. So again, I can't tell you too much about what we're going to release on the news, but I just wanted to make a general statement here so that you guys can understand what ADCRR thinks about you all and their commitment to the public, okay? So the director put out some kind of email after we leaked it to the news, and they started to bombard him, and it went out to you guys, and the email said something like, this happened, as you guys are aware, Ricky Wassenaar, got in an altercation, and it was not an altercation, and he attacked 3 inmates. Then he corrects himself in the same email saying he was the attacker and 3 inmates were killed, and it seems he was the only lone killer, all right? So that's what we know, and that's what you guys were told. And then he was taken to SMU 2, which is now Browning, and they snuck him over. There wasn't even on the movement online. They were not going to, let me tell you, they were not going to reveal any of this. They were just going to do it quietly and run it as, he killed 3 inmates. And here's what I'm getting at, man. You guys have to pay attention to this. So for you old timers, you know who Ricky Wassenaar was and is. And the news staff did not know. So the director put down that in case you didn't know, this guy just was one of the inmates that led one of the longest standoffs in history. In fact, the longest standoff in hostage situation in Lewis Complex. I was at Browning, SMU 2 at the time, and I was doing SMU 2. I was a liaison for GIT'em. We were doing gang work. So we were in the loop and heard everything, and it was a dreadful story. It lasted 14 days. I'm not going to get into that in this video because there's enough information on it. So if you're wondering what Lieutenant Garcia is doing the fuck on this little video here and saying the obvious, let me tell you what was not obvious. And again, there'll be more on the news when we expose it fully. But here's the deal. Ricky Wassenaar was one of the deals that he had made to get out of that situation with the hostages, that he made a deal that he had to be transported out of the state. He didn't want to be here no more. And after 14 days, they negotiated with these shitbags. Well, they had to. I mean, the tower at Lewis was made to be, impenetrable. So it did its job. That they let them inmates in. That's a big fuck up. That's a whole different story. But then we couldn't get in there. Nobody could get in there. They even brought in military, in case you guys didn't know, to access it. And they're like, yeah, we can't get in there. We can't breach it. We can't shoot through them windows. That tower is built to keep people out. And that's what it's doing now. So they made a deal so that, they gave up their mission of the hostage situation if they were taken out. So they agreed to this and they were gone. Years passed, and all of a sudden, unbeknownst to you guys, all right? But a lot of us were in the loop because we were still in the intel community. We have, my good friend Tommy Powell. There was a bunch of us that knew and followed what was going on. ADCRR at the time, ADOC, they reneged and brought them back to the states. Well, here to this state, right? What does that mean? Means a lot of bad things. They reneged, right? Convicts like to have their word and whatever, and this guy did what he did, but they reneged and brought him back. And he already had made statements saying, don't put me with inmates. fucking kill him. I remember that shit's in writing. It's in the news. I mean, there's nothing new here, okay? So, and he said, I'll kill inmates. And then, let's make a long story short. If that's a fact, what the fuck is Ricky Wasner doing on a 4-3? That was his level on the movement, that he was considered a 4-3. He was on Cimarron, right? In a yard that he shouldn't be on. Are we going again? Here we go. We've been crying about this. My organization has been crying for years. I'm so fucking tired of it. I don't even want to talk about it. But the step down program and the overrides and all this other illegal bullshit, right? We were saying it just last year on the news, and I went on this rampage saying one of my officers is going to get killed or inmates are going to get killed. And then we almost lost an officer, got his eye taken out. And then it went quiet for a while, and everybody, including you guys, you're quiet about it. You haven't heard any big things. I mean, we have assaults and stuff, but this all of a sudden became a big one. And now we're back to square one and what we were saying all along, right? These fucking little programs where they're overriding and step downs, all this shit that they're claiming, right? All to save a buck, and especially now that you're short, they're putting these deadly inmates on the yard. Here's where we're at with this rant that I'm doing. Ricky Wassenaar was never supposed to be on a yard with you guys. Okay? Never. Should never got out of lockdown. Why? Because he already had made the statements, I'll kill inmates. In fact, again, I can't talk too much about this little part. Something happened last year in Cimarron, and he fessed up to it, and ADCRR buried it because they didn't want to be associated with saying, if that's true, we put this guy on the yard. And they left him there, and now we have 3 dead inmates by him, by an inmate who says, don't put me on a yard or I will kill inmates. But here's the horror and why I'm putting this out there. One, we're going to be on the news tomorrow and tell you the full story. But more importantly, I wanted to touch base with you guys to let you know how unimportant you guys are to this department, to this director, and to those above. They don't give 4 fucks about you and how trashy they must think we are to take this cunt and place him on a yard in close proximity of staff amongst them. This could have been you, and I'll tell you why. In that 14-day standoff, in case you guys didn't know, him and his partner repeatedly raped the officers that were taken hostage, right? Repeatedly. That was part of it. These guys do not give a shit. They're deadly, deadly, deadly filth of human beings. Ricky knows that. And he doesn't even hide it. I mean, he doesn't hide it. He fesses up to things. There's one good thing about he fesses up about things that he does or will do. And he advised them, I'll kill an inmate. He said it. I guess he's good for his word. Now he's killed 3, and I wanted to say, knock on fucking wood, because he's already attacked officers by raping them. Could have been 3 staff instead of 3 inmates. And for this fucking director to do an email saying, he puts in the email, no one wants to work, have to go through work with this situation that happened. But motherfucker, you're the one that created it. You put him on the yard. You put Ricky Wassenaar, an inmate who already had made the statements, I'm going to kill inmates, who had already raped staff, who you reneged on a deal to keep him out of state, and then you take that beast and you put him on a yard with our staff. I'm telling you guys, literally, I'm saying this like some kind of gypsy. You dodged the biggest bullet that you can ever dodge, okay? And it's only proof that this, ADCRR does not give a shit about you in the least. They would have never, minimum, when that happened, I think it was 2004, right? After that hostage situation, they should have just said it right there and then. He will never walk a yard again for 2 main reasons. One, we don't want him near our staff again. He obviously doesn't give a fuck about our staff, and he's willing to rape him and kill him. And number 2, to keep your dignity, right? You guys are the staff working in that environment. You don't want to come face to face with a motherfucker who raped the shit out of staff and telling you, hey, I need fucking ice, or I need that, I ain't got my shit paper, right? That should have been avoided. But instead, these fucking dirtbags, and that's a shame, because I was having kind of good rapport with Thornell now and then, but I had warned them, you're going to step on your little dick, it's going to happen, you're going to trip on that little wiener, and you're going to fall flat on your face. And this, I think this did it right here. There's really no weaseling out of this one. They were going to try to hide it, put him in Browning, and run it as a murder. but not revealed that Ricky Wassenaar should have never been on the yard. Ricky Wassenaar himself, by the way, I knew him in the past. He'll tell you himself, you shouldn't put me on the yard near you guys. I've already stated it. I was upfront about it. I was legit. Don't do it. There are people in this world that are, psychopaths like that who'll tell you, hey, you got to keep me in prison. If you take me out, I'm going to kill people. They'll tell you. You got to give an ache for effort on that shit. So he warned, and it was these clowns who decided to put him on the yard with you guys. And now we have 3 dead human beings, right? That's what they are. Whether they're convicts, now they're dead. Them families are going to find out real quick here with the news that the family members, no matter what their crime, were on the yard with an inmate who already had said, I'm going to kill inmates if you put me within close proximity. So if that isn't the world's biggest lawsuit, it might top the 2004 longest hostage, situation that they went through. Because these motherfuckers are about to get the wake-up call. I mean, we put up with a lot with the Suboxone and all that shit. I've been, sometimes I feel like I'm preaching and nobody listens. This one's self-run. That's why I'm kind of chill right now. Wearing my Call of Duty bullshit, watching some Netflix. This is going to run itself. You got an inmate shouldn't have been on the yard and killed 3 inmates after he warned you he was going to do it, who possibly killed another inmate last year, and you guys hid it, and now it's out in the open. There's nowhere to hide. So I don't know what Thornell, I know he watches these, I don't know what you're going to do, buddy. You might want to call your real estate agent and see if they have an opening back wherever the fuck you came, because this is unsurvivable. Unsurvivable. Unethically unsurvivable that you had that fucking asshole on the yard near our staff, uncaring, just because you got to do what the governor tells you to, and you're trying to cut back on, trying to save a fucking buck, and you still don't want to admit that we're short as shit and you're treating staff like shit. This solidified. This right here is what my godfather, when he was alive, God bless him, he used to say, this situation put the cork in the bottle of shit and fucking sealed it. This right here. They really rolled the dice thinking that Ricky Wassenaar, this guy was bluffing, that he was bluffing when he said, I'll fucking kill motherfuckers, they put me in yard. This is where we're at, man. This is where you guys work. I don't know what else to tell you. This is not to, I'm not trying to promote, how do you say it? I don't want to be like, put this on the news to be sensationalism or anything. This is just a heads up of this is where you work. This is what you guys have committed yourself to working, and that won't get it any better. People like me ain't going to make it any better. Don't think that I always say the Wolf Daddy this and that, and I do a lot of noise, and I got rid of Ryan, and Shin was on the run by the time. This guy, by the time I'm done with him, he'll be walking. But it's fruitless. There's nothing else I can do, There's nothing else I can do. I can't prevent that was inevitable, the death of inmates and staff, which we've been lucky so far that we haven't lost staff. And, nobody wants to think about that. But with Ricky Wassenaar now knowing this fuck up and knowing what other fuck ups they've done, it's only a matter of time, man. And as horrible as it sounds, this is about triaging. Better 3 inmates than 3 staff. Yeah, I got to say it. People say, oh, you shouldn't say that. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. These staff are in there with families. They're trying to trying to support their lives and do a difference for the public. And then they're being cock-blocked by the government itself. It's fucking pathetic, right? So we got to say it. Staff, that's why in the priority, they make it, public, staff, and inmates. So the 3 inmates took the bullet this time. But just remember, in 2004, 2 staff had to deal with that for 14 fucking days. No matter who was right or wrong or how they got in that tower, they had to put up with that shit for that long. All right. So I wanted to give you a heads up with this Ricky Wassenaar. It'll be on the news either today, tomorrow, the next day on the news. I'll let you guys know tomorrow when it'll be, but it'll be on there already with a bunch of interviews with different people. It's not just going to be me. I'm a fucking nobody. I'm just one guy, and I keep track of all this shit. And when I heard it was Ricky Wassenaar, I couldn't fucking believe my ears that, this guy was on the yard in Cimarron. Fuck me. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Not meaning more than ever when I say, love you guys, but you got to watch your 6s because nobody else is watching it for you. Living proof right fucking here. This is exhibit A of not giving a fuck about our staff.